Good morning. Good day, everybody. Welcome to Dental Voice. Holy cow. Every time I have Dr. Mark Hyman in here, he just kills me. So before we begin, Dental Voice Season 2 with Zyris is a program. By the way, I'm Rolando Mia. Is a program designed to give us an opportunity to speak directly with clinicians, with people who've been and have the understanding what's going on here, to hear their perspectives, to hear what they understand, and also get advice. So today we have a returning guest, Dr. Mark Hyman, who I guess you can tell graduated from Carolina Chapel Hill, but we're not going to get into that.
Yet.
So I want to get into this. And first of all, thank you, Dr. Mark. Thank you so much for joining us, and really appreciate it. Always enjoy speaking with you. I want to say, when we spoke over 4+ months ago, you made a couple of some advice that you gave. We didn't know what was going on. COVID, the whole quarantine was just coming in, and you noted several things that were just, quite frankly, spot on, way before anybody ever validated, understood it. I mean, things about engagement, things about practice, things about education. How did you know that? Help me understand where you got that and why you were so spot on with regard to a lot of the topics that we'll cover a little bit later.
Right. Thank you, Ro. I wasn't sure that I was allowed to speak today, so this is good.
Oh, this is it.
And they're off. Thank you again for having me. I love this show. I love what you've been doing for dentistry and the company, which has been one of the most important things in my dental career. I had the privilege of 32 years in private practice. I now teach at the UNC Adams School of Dentistry in Chapel Hill, have a lot of students, a lot of mentees that are in practice that I'm in touch with, and a lot of my mentors that are still guide me and coach me. So this COVID crisis has been unprecedented in scope. We've lost almost 200,000 fellow American citizens. It's been devastating, yet there are many practices that have not just survived, but thrived during these turbulent times. So we want to try to help people see possibilities, because it's easy to say, I can't do it, I can't win during these tough times. So we made some predictions. I think we were right about many of them. And some were common sense and some were just guesses about human behavior. And so I spoke to a lot of people, and that's where I had my information. We last spoke, Ro, I believe it was April 7th. So now we're mid-September already. It's craziness. And anyway, I think, I still will say to my dying day that dentistry is the greatest profession ever. And this is the greatest time there's ever been to be in dentistry. We just got some storm clouds that we have to fight our way through, and we will be able to do that. So I sort of forgot even what your question was. I couldn't wait to pick on you.
Let me ask you this. When we first spoke, the sentiment about we'll get through this, we are getting through this. And it's so reassuring to see that you can see that the practices are fighting through that. One of the points that you made was this issue of communicate with your patients, communicate often, and you need to do everything you can to show them what you're doing to keep them safe. That has become one of the biggest and one of the strongest messages. That is, all of the practices that we've spoken to that are doing well did that right from the get-go, and you were spot on with regard to that. So I guess communication, which is what you do, is just paramount, period, right?
It absolutely is. I went and got my teeth cleaned a couple weeks ago to one of my former students and one of my mentees, who was just a superstar and absolutely crushing it in the midst of COVID. And so they called you to confirm your appointment. You called when you got to the parking lot. They have a sanitation czar that comes out, greets you, takes your temperature, puts a number on your car. When you get out of your car, you come to a station outside the office to do a mouth rinse. No one's in the reception room. You go straight back to your operatory, which has been completely wiped down and covered. It's a process of predictability. And the doctor comes in, does his or her thing, and you don't see them again. the hygienist did his or her thing, and then there's an opportunity to prepay, whether it's over Apple Pay, over if it's your Android, if it's Care Credit, whatever it is. So there's no money exchanged. There's nothing that could be infected with COVID. And you walk right out of the office back to your car and you're done. So that isn't going to be how we are going to practice forever, but that's the new normal right now, that practices are taking things to another level and showing their patients right up front that you're cared about and protected. So we talked about the big three last time, Ro. Your patients have to know that the dental office is the safest place they can go in the community, because we know how to deal with hepatitis and HIV and HPV. We've already dealt with lethal infectious diseases for decades. Of any healthcare field, dentistry has showed that we're the leader in that. So the patients have to know they're safe. Your teammates have to know that you're going to bat for them. You're going to spend whatever money, take whatever time it takes to make sure they're protected. And we as practitioners have to know that we're not going to bring this back to our families and infect our loved ones. So this can all be done, and it has been done successfully in many, many parts of the country. Ro, my understanding is statistically, according to Dentistry Today, back of August 24th, so just a couple weeks ago, they published data that 99% of offices have opened back up, and that they are at a capacity. The average offices are at 74%, so they're down 25% with increased PPE costs. That's frightening. But again, many of the offices that I've had the privilege of training the young doctors, they're cranking at 100, 110%. They're actually said they had their all-time biggest June, July, August, which I love hearing.
Yeah, it's nice to hear, and it's reassuring, because when we spoke, 5 months ago, 4.5 something, there was so much apprehension, there was so much anxiety. Now, It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I've also heard that there are potential practices that either didn't open or are not going to open, or there are clinicians who've basically said, you know what, I've been here for a long time, I don't need to continue, and I don't want to open myself to the risk. So I'm ready to go. What are your thoughts on that with regard to the practices that may not have opened?
Right. For practices that have chosen not to reopen, I'm sorry as I can be. I hope they're secure financially, but what an incredible opportunity for a young, entrepreneurial, spirited young man or woman in dentistry. I've said to my students at UNC Adams School of Dentistry in Chapel Hill, what a great time to buy a practice. Practice valuations generally go on a percentage of collections for the past 12 months, and valuations have to be softer in some areas, or practices that have thrived and can show you the numbers that they bounce back even higher to 110% of capacity are even more valuable now because of the way that they've pivoted with COVID. So there's a huge opportunity for a senior doc that has chosen not to open his or her doors, where the equipment is depreciated out and they've got a bunch of 1970s equipment, but the charts themselves are priceless gems. So there's a huge opportunity for a young practice that's looking to grow to go to Shine, Patterson, Benco and say, give me a list of everybody in town that's 65, 70, 75. Let me reach out to every one of them and say, would you like to sell your records to me? Most of us in dentistry with a few gray hairs or no hairs, Ro. Sorry. Too easy a shot, man. 62, look at this mess. For those of us who are not follicularly challenged, but are senior still, selling my practice, it wasn't the sole way I was going to retire. I had planned it carefully. Truth be told, I sold the practice and left private practice December 2017. I haven't touched a penny of the money that I sold the practice from. So, and I hope I can go many moons not touching it. But what an opportunity. If I was a senior doc with old equipment in an old building, I want to know someone's going to take care of my family of patients that have trusted me for decades. Ro, again, many practices may have not had this privilege. I had at least 5 families where I saw 4 generations. I saw great-grandma, grandma, parent, great-grandchild. I know I'm in the South. That's less of a stretch. At 28, you could be a grandmother in the South. But
Oh,
sorry, just thinking of the Mia family. Anyway, just an opportunity to me to take these patients that our senior docs want someone good to care for them. The business transaction isn't as important as knowing their family of patients are cared for. So that's my hope. And that's an opportunity for anybody listening to this Zyris webinar podcast. What a huge opportunity to grow your practice is to call around and see who may not be opening. Statistically, I understand that for every day that you're closed, you potentially lose 1% of the value of your practice. Yeah. So if you're closed with no coverage for 90 days, you've lost a ton of the value, but huge opportunity.
No, I appreciate that. And it's a fantastic thing to think about. One of the things that we didn't think about, and we're hearing quite a bit more, and yeah, this one seems to be a serious one, is when you look at the anxiety and the fact that COVID is kind, originally everyone thought aerosols, okay, got it. But now it's becoming more validated. There was a lot of anxiety with the team coming back. And in some practices, teams have all come back. And then in other practices, they haven't. And I'm hearing, or at least we're hearing, that there's a lot of, I'm going to call it gentle friction, let me say it that way, between the, hygienist and the dentist. And then you've got the team potentially that gets kind of sucked in there. You've been in practice how long did you practice?
I had the privilege of 32 years, Ro.
So how do you navigate through that? And if I understood correctly, your team stayed with you the entire time, but others are kind of struggling with this. What advice, or how would you kind of, talk about that?
Right, Ro, I had the privilege, my lead receptionist, Miss Mary Catherine Ward, only stayed with me 25 years. My lead assistant, Athena Escovedo Calloway, was with me 19 years. 3 of my hygienists were with me like 15 years. I had a level of love and loyalty that was unbelievable. And I tried to spoil them. I tried to treat them as priceless gems because they were. And I adored them, and they adored me, and they gave me tremendous love and loyalty. Ro, we talked about this, I think, last time. How often do you think my team just casually called in sick or took a personal day when we had a full day of patients scheduled? That would be never. They didn't do that to me because I didn't do that to them. So you talk about gentle friction, Ro. I think this has been one of the saddest things of COVID. Obviously, the men and women, the fellow citizens, approaching 200,000 now in mid-September, is heartbreaking. But the friction in dentistry, the teammates separated from their doctors, the tension, the struggle, the anxiety, it's broken my heart because it's too easy to take good care of your people. And to the doctors watching this that may have stubbed their toe, I'm going to ask you to give yourself some grace, ask your team to forgive you, and take good care of them. Pay for whatever it takes to make sure that they're safe and protected. In our practice, Ro, we had 8 operatories. We had 8 isolites. We used isolite every patient, every procedure. It's one of the most important things that we can talk about. In a few minutes, we'll talk about the big 5 that I want every practice to focus on. But if you didn't handle your team well historically, ask for forgiveness and make sure that they're safe and protected. Think about having a system like my young protege, Dr. Travis Bell, has done, with having an infection control sanitation czar that's going to run the parking lot, is going to run the reception room to make sure patients are safe. Have a strict written policy for your mutual protection and stick to it. Another thing that I've heard, practices that had a 45-minute hygiene schedule have moved their hygiene time to 60 minutes. And you could say to me, Dr. Mark, well, look, you just lost a couple hygiene slots. Yes, but you got more time to use your intraoral camera, to have relationship time, to make sure that your patients are safe. You want to talk about a way to crush your practice? Go in the local news. I went to Dr. Mia's practice and I got COVID. You want to talk about a way to crush your business?
Yeah. So the advice to the doctors, humility, what about the hygienists who don't want are at odds with what their dentist is doing, or feel that the dentist, or not just hygienist, teams feel that the dentist is not doing what he or she should be doing.
Right. I think if you feel that way, you've got to, with love and respect, approach your doctor, is approach him or her, not with 8 men and women attacking them at once, but sit down, ask for a cup of coffee, ask to meet them at 7 a.m., at 5:30 in the evening, and say, give an I care message. I love and care about you. I care about this practice. Help me understand why one of the greatest practices in our community is allowing X, Y, and Z. And if your doctor isn't open to that discussion, then it may be time to grow elsewhere. That's painful, but it's okay. My young protege kept his team intact and actually added some superb teammates who other practices hadn't taken care of. When I show a picture of my team in my seminar row, people say, well, look at you, man, you had it easy. No, every woman that you see in the picture when I show my teammates, they worked for another dentist and then I got them. So someone had these unbelievably talented women predominantly and didn't take good care of them like I tried to. So there are some sensational men and women in dentistry that are looking for a position. And if you have an office that is safe and cutting edge, that you've invested in some new technology and some training, you'll get some magnificent teammates that'll stay for you for a decade plus, and it'll be worth every penny.
So you mentioned technology and training. We've heard that there are clinicians out there who have actually done that. They have invested in new technology, in new systems, our system for the first time, but they're running into situations where their team either don't feel comfortable or just refuse to use it. What advice, or how do you kind of overcome that when, you bring something to me as one of your teammates and I look at it and I say, I appreciate you getting that. I can't use that. No, I don't want to use that. I mean, how do you kind of overcome, how do you navigate through that?
Right. I think like anything else in dentistry, if you said to me, Dr. Mark, what is one of the number one problems in dentistry today? It's we don't reserve time for training. I have 8 operatories. If I buy 8 isolites and say to the team Monday morning, hook them up right now and use them when you're 8 o'clock patient, the team's going to go, what is this? I still only have 45 minutes for this procedure. Now you've added something else that I don't know how to use. I'm going to look like a fool in front of my patient. This is embarrassing. That's just not the way to do it. So I think with any new equipment that you bring in, the team's got to see the benefit. They've got to have some training time reserved. You got to block out some time that they're paid for training. You can't tell them, come in on Saturday, I'm not paying you, but you got to figure this out. And
so is that what you did? How did you do it?
Absolutely. Yeah. We absolutely spent training time. We worked very carefully with Jameson Management, our coaches out of Oklahoma. So we had 6 days of in-office coaching where the office was closed for 2 days. We had a monthly leadership call and a weekly marketing call. So we spent some big dollars to earn huge dollars because we had systems put in that were predictable. And for me as the doctor row, I had to agree that I was going to be accountable just like the team for the systems. It's not acceptable to say, I paid the dang money on this, you're going to figure it out and use it. So, for example, and again, I appreciate, Ro, that you don't want these webinars, podcasts to be commercials. We brought in isolites for every room. We talked to the team about the benefit. How do you explain to the patient, what is this? I'll say, this is a cutting-edge tooth pillow. It's one of the coolest things ever. It's a 5-in-1 bite block, tongue retractor, cheek retractor, suction, LED light. It's going to cut the time for this procedure 30 to 50%. How does that make you feel, Mr. Mia? And Ro's going to say, we mean I get out of here sooner? Cool. I've had people at seminars, Ro, said the mouthpiece is what, Ro? They cost $2 a piece, something like that? Whatever. Doesn't matter. People said to me, Dr. Mark, how do you charge the patient for that? And I'm like, aren't you 50 shades of stupid? I just saved you 30 to 50% of the time to do this procedure. Why do you care? It's like, please. I'm going to quote that dental scholar, Shania Twain, who sang that song, Don't Be Stupid. This you spend small money for massive return. So the big 5 equipment-wise, Ro, as I shared with you, We had 8-ops. We had an isolite in every operatory. We used it on every patient, every procedure. We had an intraoral camera, a Digidoc. We used it every patient, every procedure, before, during, and after. Built-in chairside that you could grab the camera, boom, picture, and go. Not take your gloves off, not wash your hands. We buffered every shot we gave. Dr. McFalkel is a dentist and a chemist from California. His company is On Pharma. The product is Onset, O-N-S-E-T. It's a two-way mixing pen that you pull out 0.9 of your lidocaine, shoot in 0.9 of your liquid sodium bicarb. Your patient, traditional patient, where you give a mandibular block, they're numb 69% of the time at the 15-minute mark. With a buffered shot, at the 2-minute mark, you're at 75% numb. At the 8-minute mark, you're at 100% numb. So their philosophy now is seat, treat, complete. You can't do aerobic dentistry going back and forth, taking your PPE on and off and on and off and washing your hands and gloves on and off. Your overhead skyrockets. So you sit down, numb your patient. They're numb in 2 minutes. Boom, you do the procedure and you're done. So buffered shot, intraoral camera, isolite. We use multiple curing lights. If I'm filling 3 teeth row, how many curing lights do you want to use? I mean, I've had so many people, Ro, say to me, well, I only use one light. And I'm like, why? I'm like, well, because I only have one. I'm like, well, get another. I'm like, well, Dr. Mark, what am I going to do? I'm like, with your isolite in there, your assistant's going to cure one. You're going to cure one. You got 3 teeth in a row. You etch all 3. You bond all 3. You cure all 3. You put the composite in all 3 and cook them all. The time it takes you to do 3 fillings just tumbled. Your profitability skyrockets.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and then CAD/CAM dentistry, the idea of scanning instead of impressions, is just critical. And then we talk just as the bow on the package for the technologies, you have to have comfortable financials for every procedure. Like I said, we were a big Care Credit office, Row. One year we put over $400,000 on Care Credit. And people said to me, Dr. Mark, look at all that money you just lost. And I'm like, nope. Look at all the dentistry I got to do, because I had a comfortable way for patients to pay during turbulent times. So that's the way we're going to win.
Yeah, everything that you said, and tell me if I heard this correctly, it's not about getting sucked into and trying to figure out the technology, educate the team around the technology, because technology decreases the amount of time it takes you, increases the productivity that you have in the practice, eliminates wasted time so that you can not just do other things, but also it improves the efficiency, like the multiple curing lights of you and your team. And then most importantly, you want to make it as easy for the patient to have the experience and the practice as possible. Did I catch that?
Absolutely. Ro, imagine you needed 3 fillings done and I say, come back 3 times. And you go,
No,
dude, how am I going to get off work? You mean I got to do the mouthwash 3 times? You got to do 3 setups, 3 cleanups, 3 isolites? No, let's do 1. Let's be as efficient and effective as you can. And that's the way you're going to win. Yeah, so people could say to me, Dr. Mark, you just don't get it. I was closed for all these months. How am I going to spend this money? And my answer, Ro, is how can you not spend the money now for the massive upside? Yeah. So slowing down, working smarter, training your team, paying for excellence. In virtually every product that I mentioned, Ro, there's a cheapy knockoff that you can use. And I'm like, why wouldn't you buy the best? You're putting your practice out there. You're positioning yourself as the place to go in your community. And then instead of using an iPhone 10 or 11, that's the analogy of the modern Digidoc camera, you're using a Dr. $100 camera that takes a crappy iPhone 1 picture. It just doesn't make sense. It's bad business. Yeah. So it's a false savings to me.
Totally appreciate that. Totally.
And so it's the same thing. And people, I don't mean to call anybody out, and I won't do that. If you choose to use a dental lab from a foreign country to save money, that is your choice. I used the most expensive lab in Greensboro. Guess what my percentage of remakes were? Tiny. I used a master ceramist. He was a picky SOB. The first case I sent him, Ro, you'll appreciate this. I sent him impression. He sent it back and said, it's not good enough. I said, do you know who I am? He said, yeah, that's why I sent it back. I'm like, wait a minute. I said, let's sit down and talk. I said, here's the deal. Anything I send you that's not perfect, you send it back. I promise you, I'll redo it. No questions asked. Anything you send me that isn't perfect, I'm not paying for it. It was Mr. Mark Whitaker, Universal Lab in Greensboro, North Carolina. Sensational master ceramist. So the cases that I show in my national seminars, Ro, when people say the dentistry is gorgeous, I'm like, you're not looking at my work, you're looking at Mark Whitaker's work. And he did a ton for my career. I'm very appreciative of him.
Cool. So wait, we talked a lot about aerosols. We talked about infection control also. And it's become very evident that unlike hepatitis, or HIV, which are bloodborne diseases, this is aerosolized, or this is airborne. Now that we know so much more 5 months later, what are some of your thoughts with regard to what impact this is going to have in the dental practice, and then how it's going to affect dentistry going forward? I mean, aerosols, airborne, hard surfaces, fomites, the modes of transmission. It's kind of scary. What thoughts do you have on that?
Boy, Ro, it is scary, and thank you. I know that was a multi-questioned. The problem, the big two right now, is that people don't know when they're infected, and people don't realize how easy it is to spread this lethal virus. So I'm not being political, Ro, and the choice of wearing a mask, to me, it's a statement that I care about you, Ro. Not that I'm telling you what to do, I'm infringing on you. Is if this is spread by singing, coughing, laughing, spitting, then we have to deal with the spatter and the splatter. At our dental school, at UNC Adams School of Dentistry now, the students they have Isovacs. Isovacs are required for every crown prep now. Either rubber dam or an isolite is required for every time you use a handpiece on a patient. Unbelievable. And what a gift. And again, Zyris, your company, Ro, was extraordinarily generous with my school. We can speak about that later, but it's a gift that I'll never forget. But we are showing this younger generation, here's how you control the patient. You protect the tongue and lip and cheek. You protect what the patient swallows and the splatter that's coming out. So the aerosols are a big deal. Mouth rinses, we're going to get better figuring out the benefit of that. The fact that patients breathe in and out of their nose, that is a possibility of a way to spread viruses as people exhale. So maybe we're going to have our patients wear nitrous, the O2 mask, and just breathe oxygen if they're not having nitrous, just so they're not expelling out of their nose. Everyone's got to have an isolite. You got to do it. As simple as that. Just absolutely have to do it for your safety, for your speed and efficiency. The team is going to have to we're not going to be able to wear our cute little scrubs anymore with bare arms showing. Everyone's going to have to wear sleeves, the gloves. We're going to have good eye protection, probably wearing hoods of a fashion. I've seen those that have affixed like a headband and that come down. My young protege wears one around his neck that blocks up. So as the aerosol comes up, it's blocked. So there'll be even more ergonomic ways to do this. My hygienist cleaned my teeth without a Cavitron. Now, my teeth weren't that schmutzy. Ro, do you know schmutz?
I know schmutz.
You're from Jersey. You're not a fellow Hebrew, but you got to know schmutz. It's the yuck, the stuff. So you want to deschmutzify somebody. So long-term wise, our hygienists have to be able to use their Cavitrons. We have to find a safe way to do it. So whether it's an external suction that's next to the mouth, plus the isolite, plus the rinse, we're going to figure out the right way to do it. And air filtration in the operatories, time between procedures, sprays that we're going to use. We'll have a formula that will keep getting better. Another personal pet peeve for me, Ro, is some people have said, well, the giants of science have said something and then changed their mind. The answer to me is, yes, that's science. You constantly improve. You test and improve something. You don't always get it right the first time. So there was a time where we were saying masks weren't mandatory. Now they are. It's a kindness and a courtesy and a way that we're all in this boat together, and we have to protect each other. So patients have to know that dental offices are safe. Our teammates have to know we'll spend whatever it takes to use best practices to protect them. And if we didn't get it right the first time, teammates, you have to give your doctor some grace and say to him or her, okay, now we know better. Let's spend the money to make sure we're protected. We have to do it. Dentistry is so critical. USA Today had an article was published, I believe on 9/11, September 11th, saying the amount of cracked teeth has skyrocketed because people are grinding their teeth. The amount of perio disease because people are out of their system, they're out of their game of consistent exercising and consistent flossing and using their Sonocares. We were a huge Sonicare office, power toothbrushes, the Oral-B, the Sonicare. I'm not here hawking product, whatever you think is appropriate. I would say to my blessed hygienists, can your patients clean as well with a handheld manual toothbrush as they can a Sonicare? What does research say, Ro? Of course you can't. So who do we suggest power toothbrushes to? Should be everybody. So people have gotten out of their game of exercising and taking their vitamins. There's more drinking going on. People that are choosing to smoke. I'm not here being their daddy. I'm just saying we as an American people, we as an international community of fellow citizens, we got to take care of ourselves and we have to take care of our fellow citizens and encourage healthy behaviors. And so dentistry shut down once, Ro, we will not shut down again.
Right.
Dentistry is critical. There's 30 to 50,000 cases of mouth cancer found every year. People that skip their dental visit this year, God forbid, 9 out of 10 of our patients have some form of gum disease. We now link gum disease to low birth weight babies, premature babies, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, all the itises. So dentistry is not elective. It is critical, and we're going to be on top of protecting people, and we're going to beat this thing. I said it back in April. I'll say it again in September. If I haven't pissed you off too badly, Ro, I'd love to come back again. And we're going to win. I worry about our dental colleagues, Ro. Part of the research, part of the comment in dentistry today talked about what the men and women in dentistry, not just the doctors, but the teammates are going through as well. The physical discomfort ergonomically, the heat stress for the extra PPE, the exhaustion, the headaches, anxiety, money problems, not sleeping well, weight gain, depression, alcohol, relationship issues. Doing dentistry when it's good is hard enough. So I want the men and women that watch this webinar podcast, that are watching this on Facebook Live, we appreciate your attention and time. You got to take care of yourself. You got to protect yourself and your teammates and your patients. So that means you spend small dollars to use everything that dentistry's got so that you can do your procedures safer, easier, more predictably. That's my hope and prayer for everybody, Ro. Life's too short. Dentistry is too critical, and our profession is too much fun. Man, I loved being a dentist. I loved taking care of my patients. I had one of my 30-year patients call me this morning just checking in, and I was like,
that's cool.
It's just too cool. I love it when I get to see patients out. I'm not out a lot because my wife and I are distancing. My daughter got married a week ago, Sunday, and one of the great gifts of my life. As happy a day as I've ever had in my life. So we were very careful about distancing, but I miss being out and about and doing the schmooze, and we'll be back there. We'll probably have a vaccine early to middle of next year. That's the reality if we have real science. And that I hear statistically that a number of people are afraid to take a vaccine, not if it's well studied and scientifically proven and studied. And then the most critical people, which include the men and women of dentistry, will get the vaccine early and just make sure that we're all going to take care of each other. It's going to work out.
So what do you miss most about dentistry now that you're not, practicing on a regular basis?
Ro, because I have my students at UNC, I'm teaching multiple times a week, and I still have the connection, and I'm telling the stories. The big two things that I miss from private practice is I miss my teammates who I adored, and they were the best. We had a season row when we were undefeated. We had a decade with essentially no turnover. It was unbelievable.
That's
And I
awesome.
miss the patients, the relationships, people, the men and women that put their faith in me to care for them and their generations of family and friends. I loved going to the grocery store and hearing somebody yell, "There's my dentist." You know, the privilege of just being out and about and somebody saying, "There's Dr. Mark," and that was really cool. The money stopped being an issue. We were humbly very successful in private practice, but the money is not the reason that we love dentistry. It's a means to care for your family and protect people and give to your church, synagogue, mosque as well in the United Way and do charitable stuff. But we got to do a lot of charity dentistry in the practice too. And so I love that the team, for decades, we were about abundance and taking good care of people and being good citizens and stewards in our community. So I miss that. I miss the people terribly. I miss our national seminars. I miss going to meetings. Doing podcasts have been fun, Ro. This is a joy. It's fun to give you a hard time and talk smack to you. I miss being out on the exhibit hall floor. I miss being out in front of a live audience and getting that feedback and the laughter and the clapping and the hugging and people write me or calling me or emailing me and saying, "Dr. Mark, you changed my life." I get that online too.
Yeah.
But it's a bigger impact when you're face to face.
Well, first of all, I so much appreciate
Thank you,
the sentiment, the message. I love the advice that you have there. I'm sure your students at Chapel Hill absolutely adore you. I know that, you know, I can, to this day, I hear people who mention that they've gotten a lot of it. So likewise, I'm sure I'm the only person that you give grief to. I'll bet you.
You're top 5.
I was going to say, but I first of all, thank you so much for this. And yeah, I definitely would love to have you back another couple of months just as we follow up. Dr. Mark, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for spending. If people wanted to, you know, attend, or I know that you're doing a lot of podcasts, how would they do that? Or do you have a bunch that you're going to be doing following up here that you could just share with us, and so that people can go on and listen to you?
I do, Ro, and I appreciate that. My speaking website is www.drmarkspeaks, DRMARKSPEAKS, drmarkspeaks.com. It's got my speaking schedule on there. If people wanted me to come speak at their study club, for their state society, for their school, for whatever, I would love to. I've got 3 webinars coming up September 24th at 6 p.m. I have, for hygienists especially, it's the high impact RDH seminar, which is going to be part of the Concord seminar series. And then October 9th, I'm doing the for Santa Fe, New Mexico, for their big dental meeting. I'm doing a Zoom for them, an all-day seminar. And that's going to be a hoot. 2 separate seminars. I'm the keynote speaker in the morning. Then there's 3 breakout sessions in the afternoon. And then October 10th in the morning, I'm doing another Concord seminar, Beauties and the Beast. So those are 3 opportunities if people would like to see me live, doing some cutting edge, cool stuff, a lot of clinical, like a practice management, leadership, some technology, a lot of verbal skills. And then there's always the ACT, Kurt Barron's ACT webinar. They have an ACT U, where I've got about 10 seminars on there. If somebody wanted to join ACT U, there's a code under my name. You get a discount if you do that. Somebody could send me an email at Dr. Mark Speaks, and I can get them the code to save them $1,000 a year on that. So cool. If anyone wants to talk, if you need a shoulder, if you feel you're in a panic, if you're suffering physically or mentally, I'm here for you. Reach out to me. Let's have a private conversation. I'd be pleased to do that. My mentors in dentistry, Dr. Kathy Jameson, Miss Linda Miles, Gordon Christensen, Dr. Erwin Becker, these men and women went to bat for me. Ro, you've been very good to me. The Hirsch family's been very good to me. If I can advocate for someone, I'd be honored to.
Cool.
So anything I could do.
Yeah, thank you so much. Even though I think you have 32 references of Chapel Hill behind you, on you, around you, in your hand, I'm still going to say thank you so thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Hey, folks, if you like the content of this, please share it. Please reach out to Dr. Mark Hyman. All the grief that we give each other, and we do definitely give each other quite a bit of grief. There's a real respect that I feel and I have for Dr. Mark, and there's a mutual connection there that's pretty cool. And if you don't give someone grief, you probably don't like him that much. So if that's the case, I think he loves me.
Well, you only pick on a worthy adversary. And,
so, hey, folks, thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Mark Hyman, it's absolute pleasure. Always great to see you. Please be safe. Check out his seminars. If you like the content, please share this. And I'm sure we will see you again. So appreciate it.
Ro, thanks so much. Be safe, everybody. Take care and God bless.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.